Well, there's many steps that have to be taken, and I think very important is that we globally, as humanity, say we have to contain climate change, and that we set the targets to do that. That means, first of all, that we say at most global temperatures should rise 2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial level. That's the target we should aim for. And that's already making a lot of concessions. That already means climate change. That already means all the effects which we don't like to see, or some of them. But at least we contain it somewhere. In order to have this 2-degree limit, we need to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases dramatically. That's, we would think at present knowledge, by 2050, we have to reduce the emissions compared to 1990 by 50%. The only way to get there is that the industrialized countries, who have been historically responsible for most of the emissions and who have per capita a much higher emission than most developing countries, that these countries reduce their greenhouse gas emissions dramatically, 80 to 90% by 2050 and 30 to 40% in 2020. If they do that, and they can do that by higher efficiency, by renewable energy, then there is space for the less industrialized countries to grow their energy consumption, but they should also grow the energy consumption on the basis of higher energy efficiency and renewable energy. This whole package of setting an overall target of how much temperature should increase at most, of reducing emissions by 50%, this can only made happen if we have a binding international agreement, if we have basically a Kyoto 2 agreement which has targets for all countries in the world, and where the countries then get down to work and say, this is how we achieve our targets. We cannot avoid to also talk about consumption, because it's not just the greedy multinationals which are responsible for exploiting natural resources, but behind that is also an enormous demand by people all around the world, not only just in the rich countries, but also in the developing countries. Consumption is going up. And I would not argue against consumption per se, but these constant increases in consumption, the kind of buying luxury goods independent of what the environmental and social consequences are, cannot go on. So I think on one hand, really targeting the bad behavior of multinational companies, but on the other hand, we also have to ask of the contribution that comes from consumption, and that includes ourselves. What are we doing? And I'm sure many of us are not completely satisfied with our own behavior.